Okay, let's dive right in. We're talking about a crisis brewing in a tiny 21-mile-wide stretch of water. But this little strait is threatening to turn the entire global order on its head. This is the Strait of Hormuz, and right now it's the epicenter of a geopolitical earthquake. To really get what's at stake, let's just start with one number, 20%. That's how much of the entire planet's oil and natural gas supply flows through that single choke point. 1/5 of the energy that powers literally everything we do is now in the crosshairs. And that really leads to the terrifying question at the heart of all this. What actually happens when that tap gets turned off? And believe me, the answer is a whole lot worse than just paying more at the pump. We're talking about a systemic shock that could unravel everything. So, to wrap our heads around how we got here and where this is all going, we're going to break it down. We'll look at the choke point itself, then the awful choice facing nations in the Gulf. We'll examine the cracks this is forming in the Western alliance, the economic war that's already started, and finally, the absolute nightmare scenario that could be unleashed by the so-called solution. All right, first up, the choke point. Iran has basically turned a piece of geography into a powerful weapon. By controlling this narrow passage, Tehran is holding the entire global economy hostage. And they're doing it with a strategy that's surprisingly simple, but brutally effective. So how are they pulling this off? Not with some giant, expensive navy. No, they're using what experts call an asymmetric strategy. They're using cheap naval mines, and this is the key, anti-ship missiles mounted on the back of regular trucks. Think about that. These things are always moving, they're almost impossible to track, let alone destroy. And here's the proof that it's working. Even with the US Navy right there, 17 ships have already been attacked. It's effectively paralyzed shipping. Now, you'd think the US response would be easy, right? Just use overwhelming air power. Well, this conflict has exposed a massive, massive vulnerability in American military planning. A real Achilles heel that Iran knows all about and is hitting hard. And here it is. This quote from military analysts, it's about America's aerial refueling tankers. They have this nickname, ducks. These planes are absolutely essential. Without them, even the world's most advanced fighter jets can't fly very far. But as the quote says, they're slow, they have no defenses, they are sitting ducks, easy targets. And this is a huge deal. The threat from pro-Iranian militias in Iraq is now so high that US tankers have been forced to completely stop flying over the country. That is a major tactical retreat. They're now forced to reroute all the way through Saudi Arabian airspace, which is a desperate move that just shows how much Iran's strategy has crippled America's freedom to operate. Okay, let's shift focus to the regional players, like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. For them, this crisis has become an impossible choice. One analyst perfectly described it as choosing between the pest and cholera. I mean, just look at their options. They're both terrible. If they go all in with the US, they face immediate, devastating attacks from Iran on their oil fields, on financial hubs like Dubai. But if they try to stay out of it, they risk the US cutting some deal and just leaving them high and dry, all alone to face an angry Iran. There is literally no safe move for them to make. And if you want to see what this paralysis looks like on the ground, here it is. 52,000. That's the number of trucks that have crossed the Saudi-UAE border since this blockade started. It's a massive, desperate scramble to move essential goods by land because they can no longer come by sea. Now, this crisis isn't just creating chaos in the Gulf, it's ripping the Western alliance apart at the seams. When former President Trump called for an international coalition to step in, the response he got, or didn't get, revealed a really deep and dangerous crack inside of NATO. This table just lays the split bare. You have the US pushing for aggressive action, France is, well, they're supportive, sending some ships, but then you have Germany with a hard no, and the UK is being extremely cautious, saying they want a bigger coalition that, just isn't there. This is the opposite of a united front. So why the cold feet from Europe? Well, 3 big reasons. 1, they are terrified that any military action will spiral into a massive, uncontrollable war. 2, there's Russia. Every time the price of oil spikes because of this crisis, that's just cash flowing directly into Moscow's war chest for Ukraine. And 3, and this one is a game changer, it's not a distant problem anymore. Iranian missiles can now reach European cities. We're talking Rome, Berlin, they're in range now. And that brings us to the highest stakes of all.
You see, this isn't just a military conflict. It's an economic war, a quiet but brutal war being fought over the very foundation of the entire global financial system.
For 50 years, the petrodollar system has been the bedrock of American power. It's simple. Oil is sold in US dollars. That means every country on Earth needs to have dollars, which makes the dollar the world's default currency. Well, Iran, with China's full support, is launching a direct assault on that system. They're demanding that fees to pass through the strait be paid in Chinese yuan. They are trying to create a petro-yuan. This is a calculated shot across the bow, designed to chip away at the dollar's dominance. And if other countries start doing it too, well, that's a real threat to the foundation of America's economic strength. And don't think this is just some abstract financial game. The shockwaves are already hitting us. The blockade has trapped Qatar's natural gas, which is critical for making fertilizer. That's a direct threat to Europe's food supply. In the US, gas prices have hit $8 a gallon in places. Our strategic oil reserves, almost empty. And every single minute the Dubai airport has to shut down, it costs the global economy millions. So what's the solution? Right now, military intervention seems to be the only option being seriously discussed to reopen the strait. The problem is, analysts are warning that this solution could open a Pandora's box, unleashing something far, far worse than the problem we have now. You see, any military plan to reopen the strait looks like a three-step escalation ladder. Step 1 is a massive, incredibly dangerous minesweeping operation. If that's not enough, Step 2 is a huge aerial bombing campaign to hunt down those mobile missile launchers. And if that still doesn't work, you're at Step 3. A full-blown ground invasion to topple the government. Each step up that ladder gets exponentially more catastrophic. Which brings us to this really chilling question. Let's just say the invasion is a military success. What happens the day after Iran's central government falls apart? This is what experts are calling the NATO chaos scenario. And it's a nightmare. They warn that a collapse in Tehran won't bring peace. Instead, it would be like cutting the leash on all of Iran's powerful proxy groups, like Hezbollah and the Houthis. They'd become their own bosses, triggering a chaotic, decentralized religious war across the entire Middle East. And we're not talking about a short, messy conflict. This timeline shows the grim forecast. A regime collapse is followed by years of proxy wars, which then breaks down into decades of decentralized terror attacks. We're looking at a predicted 20-year cycle of violence, with no clear enemy to fight and no end in sight. So we're stuck. We're staring at a choice between a potential global economic collapse on one hand and an endless, unwinnable regional war on the other. It really forces you to ask a final, deeply unsettling question. Are we watching the final hours of the global order we've known since World War II come to an end, right here in a 21-mile-wide strait of water?